All right, welcome back to the African History Network show. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. On the line, we have Brother Olayami Dabls, who is going to tell us about the annual Bead Festival celebration coming up this Saturday, September 13th in Detroit. Hotep, Brother Dabls, how you doing tonight?
Hotep, Michael. Thanks for inviting me on your show.
Oh, no problem, brother. Well, you are a wealth of information. You have a lot of interesting things and a lot of history and culture at the Bead Museum, and it's like a little-known secret in Detroit as well. So more people need to know about it. Absolutely. Well, first of all, let people know where you're located and what does MBAD stand for? MBAD.
MBAD is an acronym for my children, Mekata, Davida, Aleki, Bakari. We are located at 6559 Grand River at West Grand Boulevard. We've been at this location for 13 years.
Wow. Okay, so that's excellent. So you have longevity there, and what caused you to open up Bead Museum initially, to start the Bead Museum? Because we hear about different types of museums. We hear about different types of museums, things like that, but don't hear about bead museums too often. So go ahead, brother.
Yeah, we located here 13 years ago. I had a gallery downtown Detroit that sold African material culture, primarily beads. Most of the beads had never been seen before, or they were virtually unknown, hard to find. So as opposed to selling the beads, I decided to collect the beads and at some point in time open a museum, because like most people who collect, you got to have a working knowledge of what you're collecting. And my information suggested to me that our people needed to know the information behind the beads so we could see just how sophisticated our people were and are. We have a tendency to talk about our past in generalizations, but if you are focusing on the beads, the textiles and sculpture pieces, you're able to talk direct about some materials that we can actually point to and show people how sophisticated we were as a people and still are.
Wow. So let me ask you this: when we talk about the beads, these are beads that you will see like on necklaces and things like this, maybe bracelets. Is that correct? These are the type of beads that you're speaking of?
Yes and no. Most of the beads that I'm talking about you can only find them in collections, people who are collecting African material culture. These beads have never been in the commercial arena other than the actual trading that took place in the 17th and 1800s. When the Europeans first came to Africa, there was no such thing as money, currency. You had to have something of value that you could trade. So they came, observed, and noticed that African people had intertwined in their culture beads. People were wearing beads, initiation, rites of passages, communicating specific information. So they went back to their respective countries and made those beads out of glass and brought them back, and they caught on. And therefore, the beads have been hanging around in Africa for about 500 years, and it was only in the 60s when the Peace Corps went to Africa, they brought those beads back to America and used them with their flowers during the 60s when they were called the Flower Children, the Peace Movement. And some of those enterprising people began to sell those beads in this country. Since the beads was part of the culture, that was the first thing that the European did, was to dismantle us from traditional culture. So if you take the reason for the beads existing away, now you have something that has no value in Africa, because no one just adorned themselves for the purpose of looking good, etc. The beads communicated specific information.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So now we're getting deeper into some of the cultural significance of the beads. Now, you hit on a few different things here. So the beads that you have at the MBAD Bead Museum, what parts of Africa are these beads from or representative of?
We're talking about beads that were used prior to the 1880s. So therefore, Africa was just one big mass land where people moved, migrated, just moved around. So there was no particular area. There were just groups of people identified by the culture groups and their name. But today, most of the beads have been located in Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, the Gambia, and a few other places because people stopped using the beads for whatever reason, no longer being used for initiation rites of passage. So therefore, the beads were gathered in particular countries and shipped to Europe, China, Japan, etc.
Okay. Now, you talked about the cultural significance of the beads and the information that the beads were telling or describing, things like this. Give us some examples of the significance of certain beads and the type of information they would convey.
Yes, I'm talking about a time before the arrival of the European. So this is traditional. This has not occurred recently within the last 300 or 400 years because that time was spent colonizing us and making us act like and behave like and appreciate someone else's culture. But prior to the 1800s, the moment the mother became pregnant, beads were placed around the mother's neck to protect her and her unborn child. The moment the child came to the planet, beads were placed around the child's waist for two reasons. For protection, also determine if the child was healthy, because if the child was not healthy, then you wouldn't have to add any beads. So it was an indicator of how the child was growing. And from that point on, after 3 years, beads were used for initiation for the various secret societies for young men and young women. And these beads would be used to communicate specific information to people in the community who had been initiated, and they would know how to deal with the ones who have been initiated. A young lady reached the age 12, 13, a young man, they would wear certain things to let everyone know they would have to treat them like adults. They could no longer treat them like children. They would wear something that would indicate that. Awards, family accomplishments, all those things could be communicated with specific beads that a person would wear. So literally you had people walking around you. If you hadn't been initiated, you would have no idea what those beads meant until after your initiation. Then you would be awakened to some information that was readily in front of you. Secrets revealed, secrets concealed. When you became an elder, you wore certain beads. You couldn't just call yourself an elder. Everything had a reason for being. You couldn't even call yourself a man or a woman. You would wear beads that would indicate that you have been through the initiation to become a man or a woman. So the beads are very important in the community. And if you look at old African pictures, you will see the people adorned with their beads. It's a misnomer to look at them and think they're just having those things on for the purpose of looking good. There were certain beads that only certain people in the community could wear. Beads made out of iron was reserved for very, very specific people in the community. Beads made from chevrons were reserved for very specific people in the community. Beads from various animals could only be worn by certain people. So the beads played a very intricate part in controlling and determining a lot of things that took place in the community. We don't have those systems set up anymore, so people are just running amok and doing whatever they want to. There has to be some kind of control in the community for young people need guidance, and those beads act as a direct indicator to what they could do and could not do. People may know this, they may not. The Boy Scout was set up based on the use of beads in Kenya, but as opposed to using beads, they use badges. So our systems are still alive today. In fact, we adorn ourselves today, not realizing it's in our DNA to communicate specific information about how we look or dress. It's just that we're doing these things out of culture ignorance.
Absolutely, and I've heard that before about how the Boy Scouts started. It actually started. It was from my understanding, it was a man who saw something like the rites of passage going on somewhere in Africa, probably Kenya, something like that, and he got the idea of the Boy Scouts from what he saw there
right.
in that African country. Very, very powerful information. If you're just tuning in, we're speaking with Brother Dabbles from the MBAD Bead Museum, located at 6559 West Grand River in Detroit, where African Town begins. Now, Detroit, we have a Greek town, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brother Dabbles. We have a Greek town, we got a Cork town, we had an Asian village. You have an Arab section of Detroit. Some people call it Arab town. You have a Mexican town. You have a Pole town. You have a hockey town. So your area is African town. Is that correct? Where African town begins? Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, and that brings up an interesting point. Back in the 80s, when I was dating, I used to take my girlfriend, she would take me to the various cultures that were around, and because the people came from a specific country and a specific group of people, the tendency is to adorn those places like from which you came. But there was nothing in the city of Detroit that reminded me of Africa. There was good reason for that, because we came here over 400 or 500 years ago, so we had no recollection of how we did things on the continent. So my goal was to create something that was based on not so much a commercial, say this was Africa, but to take some of the things that we used in Africa and use those things and see if that would create that energy that would remind us of Africa. So the materials that I used to build these installations here was iron, rocks, and wood. Those three things have a very special meaning to the African, let's say 500 years ago. We had a very special relationship with the use of iron. First, we could clear the land, and we can make these invincible materials. And because iron was a transformation material, it had a very special place in our heart. We saw it as something that was magical. So anything related to iron, the wearing of iron, the use of iron, you could empower it to make it do specific things for you. And that was especially in the Central Africa area, Zaire, which took up a very large area on the continent. They were called Nkissis. In fact, the European observed the use of the Nkissi, and he came away with the voodoo doll, which he missed the point. It wasn't the point of putting nails in a doll. It was putting iron in these wooden sculptures and asking those iron to do certain things, which was to protect the people. So Africa has a very interesting past that as African people we need to study those things. Culture is always presented from the family, not from the institution. So it only makes sense that the African culture would not be available. We are in a Western paradigm, so it's up to us to promote and bring forward those culture remnants of our culture. And we must remember that the technical definition for culture is language and creation myth. The dancing, the drum playing, that's fine. But your culture is your language and your creation myth on how you got here. And that's what we're trying to do here, is to remind people that we had a unique culture, we had a unique dance, we had a unique language, and we had a unique creation myth, which was called animus. We had a very special relationship with animals and trees. All of that is emphasized here. If you ask, if you don't ask, you can still go away getting some kind of energy just from the way the place is set up here. And so our festival is a way of introducing new people to what we are doing in a very subtle way. History is relatively new when it comes to teaching it. Normally you observe it from the culture you're in. It's just there. It's around you. It's like we are immersed in Western history now every day. We may not know the meaning of these buildings and these sculpture pieces that are around us, but they do. They don't go away. We just observe them, and the more we're in their culture, the less we will know about our culture because we have not sought fit to interject things out of Africa in our culture. We have African sculpture pieces that we bring out. Last year we had a textile exhibit. This year we're going to have a quilt exhibit. Now, quilts came from Africa. They used to pad the horses, so if they were fighting each other, the spears wouldn't penetrate the quilts to hurt the horses, and that information would be on those quilts. And when we were enslaved in this country, the people had a reckoning of that, how that was used, so we used the quilts to send messages to travel from the south to north. No one knew that that was information there in their face hanging on the quilt line. So quilts have a very special relationship in the African community, and we're having a quilt exhibit, and we also will be showing some of the sculpture pieces out of Africa, which are interested in themselves because the sculpture pieces is just like the European graveyard, his markers on the graveyard. Those sculpture pieces that are in these museums, those are actually that is the ancestor. When it comes to identifying how people put their ancestors to rest, we have to study them, not study how it's being done today. Our ancestors in the museums, and we literally go there and look at them and try to figure out what's going on. The masks were used to communicate with the ancestors, to bring them forward, to help us out. Our system was based upon communicating with the ancestors, and that's what we are emphasizing.
Absolutely. Wow. That's powerful, brother. Okay, then if you're just tuning in, you listen to the African History Network show. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. We're speaking with Brother Dabls of the MBAD African Bead Museum in Detroit, Michigan. If you have a question or comment for us, we have a few minutes left in this segment. If you have a question or comment for him, give us a call, 914-338-1375, 914-338-1375. Press the number 1 key to put you in queue so we can bring you on the air. It's very rare that you have an opportunity to talk to a brother like this that has an extensive knowledge of African culture and African history combined. Let me ask you this, Brother Dabls. Now, do you have any books there at the African Bead Museum that break down the history of the beads and the cultural significance of the beads, things of this nature?
We have books, but we do not emphasize the words. The words primarily came to us as a result of our encounter with the European. Although there were at least 25 scripted written languages in Africa, and we have at least 25 of them on a wall here. There were more than that, but most people learned through symbolism, through just being a part of the culture. Culture was never designed to be taught. You are what you are because you are in it. But there was a brother, he's no longer with us, George Harum. He had a bookstore. He was a bibliophile. He knew more about the books and the information in the books than anyone that I've ever ran across. But he passed earlier this year, so the bookstore will not be open. We do have books. I like books. All of my knowledge came from books, but it was only when I began to just sit back and realize this can't be the way that our people passed on information. It requires too much preparation. Then it occurred to me that culture is around you. We are in a Western culture now. We don't feel it. We don't pay attention to it until we walk into another culture's area. Then we realize, wow, it's all around us. And that's where we have to get as a people, is to make our culture so readily available until it becomes like the wallpaper. It's there, but you don't notice it. And that's the next phase. Our struggle here is in phases. We're in probably, I would say, the middle phase. When people began to go back, I'm talking about people on the continent too, and embrace their own culture, then we will get back to our rightful place. But we cannot do anything without a knowledge of culture. If we do not have our own culture, then that means that what we have is on the backbone of someone else's ideals and concepts. You work best when you're working out of your own culture bag.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that, brother. And, when I teach, and I got this from Dr. Leonard Jeffries, but African history and culture lays your foundation, and it influences your economic empowerment and political empowerment, but it's your history and culture that gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles, okay? And that's something extremely important. So now the event is taking place. It's your annual Bead annual Bead Festival celebration. What time is it taking place on this Saturday?
It's from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Saturday the 13th. That's this Saturday.
Yes.
And it's free to the public, but we ask for donations, but it's mainly a point in time where we have a lot of people representing the various cultures that we represent in our own field, and they will be selling food, selling their wares, entertainment. Ife Best is probably the world's greatest drummer because he has a unique style. He will lead the event with various drummers. We have Amawala Dance Group. It's just a lineup of very talented and people who are interested in promoting and using our own culture as a platform to educate and bring ourselves back to who we were in the past. Our future is in our past, not in the future.
Right, Sankofa, absolutely. You're also going to have African martial arts demonstration by the Timerian Institute of Martial Science. Right. So that's Brother Kalindi E. School. They'll be there.
Yeah. He's known all over the world for bringing back traditional African martial arts. And he also built an oven. We will have pizzas and other foods. This oven is unique. You start the fire, and then the thing holds its heat for a couple of days. You can just put stuff in it and cook it. It's fascinating, something like that to be from the past in the 21st century. And he just finished it this week. So we got a whole lot of stuff, just down to earth things that we're introducing to our people to just break away with this fast-paced illusion that we're in.
Absolutely. And, we've had Kalindi on the show a number of times. I know him very well. And you're also going to have outdoor exhibits featuring African material, cultural sculptures, things like this, mass statues. Do you offer like any classes or anything like that? Like what do you all do during the week? And let people know when you're open during the week also.
We're open during the week, so we primarily sell beads. There are just too many of our people that are into the educational component of what we're doing. We are primarily interested in symbolism, images, and just having the African experience around you. The education component, we can pick that up somewhere else, but what we have is just a unique energy to remind us that their materials actually communicate specific information too. They can make you feel good. They can make you feel forget about your problems. They can break you out of the reality of what's going on around us. That's our emphasis is the imagery, the colors, the energy of those colors, and all the iron that's out there. By the way, that's enough iron in us to make a 3-inch nail. We can't live without iron. Iron holds the blood cells together. We have a magnetic field around us because of iron, and you actually see that iron out there in the installation. That's what we're interested in, is getting people to realize that there's more than one way to appreciate your culture. And the best way is when you're using all your senses. And that's what we paid attention to, the senses, not just the symbolism of having to read someone's ideas or concepts.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So this is a free event. It's a family-oriented event also. I was at this event last year. The annual Bead Festival celebration is fantastic. You have live music. It's a cultural event. You can experience the culture, and from traditional African culture, you're going to learn through experience as opposed to just necessarily sitting down reading.
One of the unique things about what we're doing, Michael, which you may not have noticed, but I have noticed over the years, in our community, we have a diverse group of ideas and concepts. Some of them are in conflict with each other. Some can't stand each other. But they all come to the MBAD African Bead Museum. It is not a particular philosophy. It is a place that houses the tools and materials of our ancestors.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So once again, the MBAD African Bead Museum is located at 6559 West Grand River Avenue in Detroit, right at Grand River and Grand Boulevard. This is taking place September 13th, 2014, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. And there'll be vendors there as well. I'll be a vendor also. Now, how can people get in contact with you if maybe they want to be a vendor or maybe be a performer or something like that?
The number is 313-898-3007. 313-898-3007. And I would direct them to the person who's doing the vendoring and the person who's taking care of the entertainment.
Okay, absolutely. Let me see here. Okay. I was checking a couple of things, checking a couple of messages in the chat room. Now, MBAD is a nonprofit organization dedicated to the preservation of ancient African artifacts and communicating the African contribution origins to every civilization. And even though this is a free event, you're also accepting donations. Is that correct?
Yes, we're accepting donations, and that's the primary means of underwriting the cost of our programs here is through donations. And people buying from our gift shop.
Okay. Now, give people an idea what you have in the gift shop also, because I know people want to come. They want to get things from people who can really explain to them the cultural significance of it and history, things like this. What are some of the things you have in the Bead Museum, in the gift shop?
We have beads that range from 800 to 100 years old. We have beads made out of various materials. We have necklace, earrings, bracelets, a few sculpted pieces for sale, a lot of beads. We're the largest bead store in Michigan. We chose to just specialize in one product because it has such a powerful impact on our people in the past. We feel that it would carry itself even today, and people buy the product. Some of the items are expensive, but most are reasonably price. You could buy a 200-year-old bead for like $6. You could buy a 500-year-old bead for like $7. So our primary product is beads. But the vendors that will be there on Friday, there will be a diverse group of merchandise out of Africa, clothing, facial products, earrings, etc.
Right. Okay. You mean Saturday?
Saturday, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We had a market on Friday, and that's locked in my mind.
Okay, all right, absolutely. Now, I noticed on the flyer, I'm looking at your flyer right now. Your flyer has it looks like a dial of what appears to be, I'm not sure if it's a monkey or ape or something like, it looks something like that. And it has, it looks like, go ahead.
It is a monkey. In the West, the monkey is looked upon as something that's being less than appreciated. But in Africa, the monkey was revered like we review the fox in this country. It was a very clever animal. And that monkey is a power figure. There, if you look closely, there are nails in it, and the nails give it its power. every time a nail was placed in it, as I stated earlier, what the iron was, you can ask it to do certain things. We even have one here at the installation here, but it's not a monkey. The Nkisi could be in three forms. It could be in the form of a man, a woman, an animal. And that one is in the form of a shape of a monkey. You will find them as dogs also. But you place those around the perimeter of your community, and you empower them by placing the iron in it, and you ask it to do certain things. This installation here, I place iron in the Nkisi and asked it to do three things. That the city wouldn't see it, because we're not coded, have permission for the installations out there, and the graffiti artists wouldn't tag it, and the vandals wouldn't vandalize it. And we've been here out in the open. You see how it's set up. But this is our 14th year. So the power that our ancestors used, it didn't go anywhere. Time is an illusion. It really doesn't exist. So we need to pay more attention to how our ancestors resolve issues or control forces outside of us. People are using those forces against us. They're telling us they don't work, but at the same time, they're using them. So when you study your own history, then things around you will become quite clear that, wait a minute, this is out of the African system. But the only way you can recognize something is to know yourself.
Absolutely. You have to understand what you're looking at. I tell people we all have to become history detectives and understand the symbols that we see in the culture that they come from, the cultural significance, because we see them all around us, and they've been stolen from us and used against us, but we don't know where they came from and the significance of them.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, you talked about the Nkisi, and is that the nails that we see in the dial here? Now, what do those nails signify? What do they mean?
Well, I stated earlier, there's iron in us. It's really the iron, not the nail. There's a connection with us with iron. And since we know that iron is very powerful, why not use it to control some of the forces or the unknown things around us? And that's how the African used the iron to control things. And things are pretty much, you are what you think you are. If you're putting bad information in, that's what you are. But if you're putting good information out about yourself through the form of magic, word is magic. The most powerful magic on the planet is words. Just ask someone that you care a lot about and have them say something bad to you. So the power of the word, the iron, those are the things that we use to control the forces around us. Only a very violent force can intervene with that. And that's how we lost our power, because we were dealing with the physical force. But we still haven't lost it. It's still there, but it's been hidden from us. And that's what all this culture information is about, to try to get us to reconnect back to what we were doing prior to. And we will realize that, wow, it's there. It's in our DNA. They tell us all the time. The particles in us 3 billion years old. So what exactly does that mean? It means that we have information in us that we can't get access to because we're not doing the right things to trigger that information. And when you start dealing with your own culture, all kinds of information will reveal itself. It hasn't went anywhere. It's just that we blocked it out.
Right.
Some of us get through, and we do great things, but it's because the control did not work on most of us. Like yourself and all these scholars you mentioned earlier, they got past it. They had very strong minds.
Right, exactly. Now, I want to revisit the dial of the monkey for just a minute. I know you mentioned and you talked about how in various African cultures, the monkey is looked at as a very sly or intelligent animals, such as the foxes in this Western culture. And you mentioned some other things. I didn't get all of them, but tell us the rest of the significance of the monkey, because you have it here on the flyer.
Oh, the monkey on the flyer is a power figure. It's used to empower the person who has it. As I stated, all the animals were significant. Now, we had a system called animus, and animus is a very special relationship with the animals and the plant life, the trees, and that was taken away from us. In fact, what occurred when the European first encountered us, he thought we was crazy or something was wrong with us because we were literally communicating with the animals, like what is going on Facebook. We see someone capture an image of a relationship between man and an animal. Well, we were doing that when they first encountered us.
Right.
No one had a better relationship with the animals on this planet. In fact, part of the African philosophy in his story is that the animals in the trees have just as much a right to be here as we do. We didn't kill them. All the animals were killed out within the last 200 or 300 years. The trees were destroyed for us to make pretty things to put in our houses. We respected the tree. The tree was looked upon as a mother symbol. The tree was also used to make the tools that we use in our initiation rites of passage. The trees had a very special place with us, and we saw the tree as stationary life, not as something that was there for our use however we wanted or feel that we needed to use it. That's the relationship we have. So the monkey is just one animal that they decided to use to bring forth power to use certain things out of nature. And you use certain things out of nature by using the tools of nature. All of those tools that we use, they didn't destroy them. They're in these European museums. At some point in time, when we realize how valuable they are to us, we will ask for them back. And they have no choice but to give them back. The only way people keep things away from you is your ignorance of them. Once you empower yourself, they don't have a choice but to give them back. So we're at a stage now where we're beginning to pay more attention to the culture, not the culture that we see every day, music, dance, etc., the real culture, your language and your creation net. When we begin to answer those things back, that's why I refer to it as African material culture, because those things are not just African art. Art has a very specific meaning. Those things embed our history. That monkey, there's so much information out there on that monkey until it is mind-blowing. And the European did not have anything in its culture that was similar to the use of the monkey. So when you translate it, he translated into his Christianity.
Right.
So he took the power away from the monkey, and that's one of the pitfalls that we fall into when we use his translation. He's not being slick. It's just that when you translate something, you translate it into your language.
Right.
And as a result of that, it doesn't work for us.
Yeah, you try to relate it to, they try to relate it to what they, within the circumference, limited circumference of their own understanding. And it was nothing to correlate it. It's nothing equal to that.
Exactly.
Right.
And see, we had the African lineage starts over 200,000 years ago with the Bayambuti, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So how can you come along and have a history that would incorporate what we came out of nature doing? We were there. We knew how special the animals were. No one else knew that. So that's part of what we're trying to do is to get us to begin to just think with common sense about where we should be and what we should be doing. European education is good, but that education doesn't offer you anything about your culture. It's nothing magical about that. It's just he's educating us for us to work in his paradigm, but we don't have to be there mentally. There are various cultures in this planet who work and do quite well in his culture, but never run away from their own. But that was a little different because it was taken away, and we have to interject it ourselves.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Let's go to the phone lines quickly. We have a call from Global Political Awakening. All right, Global, are you there?
Yes, I am.
How you doing?
I'm really enjoying the conversation. You know, I'm always, impressed and inspired by people who lend their particular passions and talents to important issues. And
Yes.
and your guest tonight is doing just that. And so I appreciate it. He made reference during the conversation, and I apologize that I don't know his name. But
Dabbles.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Brother Dabbles.
Dabbles.
Brother Dabbles.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brother Dabbles?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's a pleasure hearing you speak and to share your art and your knowledge about the art. What I wanted to know is you made reference, and it was kind of skipped over because I know you're focused on what you're doing in your event, but you made a reference to the fast-paced illusion during the conversation. And I wanted to know if the host is willing for you to talk about that a little bit, what that means, what you meant by that,
Yeah.
especially in relationship to global events that we're experiencing around the world, and also here in America, with what happened recently in Ferguson,
Missouri. Okay, yeah. Well, go ahead. What you were talking about with the fast-paced illusion that we're dealing with, Brother Dabbles. Okay, thanks, Global Awakening. Thanks for the call, okay?
Thank you.
I make
Okay, thanks. Mm-hmm.
capsulized statements that it's outside of my interests.
Oh, right.
So therefore, that statement was just to capsulize a reality that is. We are in an illusion. That illusion is created. That illusion is not dealing with the African period. It's a very special effort on us to even bring forth information about Africa. Give you a good example of that illusion. We're supposed to be in the art capital of the world, but yet African material culture is not there. And if it's there, it's under their paradigm. And if it's under their paradigm, it's an illusion, meaning they call it African art. And African art does not exist. It's a misnomer. So I prefer just to stay in the arena where I've spent most of my time and I know most about, and leave the other areas out. When you are in contemporary issues, you are reacting. I'm trying to be I'm proactive. So therefore, I don't make too many comments on contemporary stuff because it's something that's in the present, and we need to set up things that will come to fruition in the future. So I stay away from the reactionary type stuff. The thing with Ferguson is reacting to something. It wouldn't take a rocket science for us to realize, let's say 10 years ago, in which direction the police was going to go with us. You gain the respect of your people by immersing yourself in your own culture. You gain the respect of other people. See, we have gone through a media onslaught on young African males over the last 80 years. So how can they treat us any other way than that? We have not countered that in any form or fashion. In this country, you counter things with museums and places where people are learning, public learning institutions, and that's what we're doing. We're trying to counter the imagery of people and the perception they have about us. And that perception about African people is an illusion. We came from out of being chattered slaves, and now we have turned into the most vicious and violent people on the planet. How can that possibly be? Mm-hmm. It's an illusion.
Exactly, that's an illusion. Right. And that's the illusion fed through the television. People call it a TV, but it's a television. It's a vision that tells lies. Absolutely, totally understand that, brother. I think we had one more, a Diamond Radio. If you have a quick question, you call now. Press the number 1. Keep you on the line. 914-338-1375. Press the number 1 key. Okay. Once again, this annual Bead Festival is taking place this Saturday, September 13th, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. In Detroit, 6559 West Grand River. right at Grand River and Grand Boulevard at the MBAD African Bead Museum. Okay, it's a free event. Donations will be accepted. You definitely want to come out. We have the flyer on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network. It's going to be in our email newsletter that goes out tomorrow. If you haven't already signed up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet to 22828. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828. Sign up for our email newsletter. We're going to have Brother Dabls back on this Thursday on our show as well to talk about this some more, because he has a wealth of information. There's a lot of cultural significance about the beads that people don't know. They just think it's pretty and they want to wear them, things of this nature. But there's a lot more to it, and these are things that we have to reclaim to make us a whole people once again. Also, I think what are your thoughts on that, brother?
I'm in agreement with you. All
Absolutely.
the efforts that we are engaged in the African community, all of those various components are important. There were over 3,000 languages in Africa. That means that there were over 3,000 unique people. So one solution is not going to resolve the issues for us. It's just that we cannot afford to ignore the material culture that is left out of most of the conversations. That's the most important part. It cannot be argued with. It exists. It's around. It is our proof.
Absolutely.
They
All right, well, look, brother.
for us.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Finish that thought. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. I was looking at I thought we had a call here. Okay. Well, look, brother, we're going to let you go. I appreciate it. We're going to have you back on this Thursday. And do you have a website also? I think somebody in the chat room asked about a website. Do you have a website?
Yes, it's the MBAD.org.
Okay, mbad.org.
Yeah, but there's more information out there about us if you just Google Dabls Art MBAD Museum. The world has embraced what we're doing here. We have a Flickr photo sharing account. We have over 1 million viewers, and all is on there is African beads, sculptures, and the history of this installation here. So we are on the right track. What we're doing, using the word Africa and placing emphasis on African culture, is resonating.
Absolutely. Well, look, brother, I look forward to seeing you again. Saturday, we're going to have you back on the show this Thursday, and I want to get some of the beads and learn more about the cultural significance and experience the culture, things like that this Saturday. So you have a good night, brother, Imhotep, and I'll talk to you soon, okay? No problem, brother.
Okay.
Peace.